ancient walls and sacred vestments, where faith intertwines with finance in a dangerous and deadly game. This is the Vatican, but not the Vatican of prayers and blessings. No, today I take you inside the secret rooms of God's bank, where money flows like a silent river, where eternal faith meets high finance, where sins are erased with a receipt, and where millions disappear in the silence of sacred corridors. An empire built over centuries, not of armies or territories, but of mysteries, power, and money. So much money. A church that preaches poverty, but manages billions. And if you stay until the end of the video, you'll discover a labyrinth of interests, resistances, opacity, scandals, and murders. Anyone who has tried to lift the veil on these secrets of the church, to shed light where darkness has reigned for centuries, was first isolated, then silenced, and sometimes made to disappear forever. But now there's a newly elected pope, and with him, there's a faint hope that someone will finally have the courage to open the Vatican's windows, letting in fresh air, truth, justice, to settle accounts with the past once and for all. Hello, everyone. I'm here for Money Made Easy, and for centuries, the Vatican has embodied faith. But beneath that golden dome moves another force, the force of money. And what happens when the sacred is contaminated by the profane? When the preached morality clashes with the reality of bribes, scandals, and even murders? Yes, you heard right, because this isn't just a simple story of accounts and balance sheets. It's a full-blown financial thriller, with hanged bankers under London bridges, indicted cardinals, and disappeared billions into thin air. You see, for centuries, the Catholic Church has been a pillar of human history. From the endless corridors of the Vatican to the most remote rural chapels, its influence has seeped everywhere. What many don't know is that it's not just a spiritual force. It's also one of the most powerful financial entities in the world. Owner of over 5,000 properties, including churches and investments scattered across the globe, it's a hidden empire that moves discreetly through the folds of global finance. It invests in banks, multinationals, and finance. And its public face of charity and prayer hides the soul of an economic colossus. Take America, for example. They're alone. The Catholic Church controls assets of around $170 billion a year. It surpasses industrial giants like Stellantis, with all its car brands. All this originates from the offerings of the faithful, convinced they are helping the poor. But how much of that money actually reaches where it should? To answer this question, we need to briefly look back at the Vatican's past. The story of the Vatican's wealth is as old as the Church itself. For centuries, the Papal States were a significant temporal power in Europe, controlling vast territories and amassing incredible wealth. But it was until the 19th century that the modern financial structure of the Vatican began to take shape. In 1870, the newly unified Italy annexed the Papal States, leaving the Pope as a prisoner in the Vatican. This loss of temporal power paradoxically led to a focus on financial power. The Church, no longer able to rely on taxes from its territories, had to find new ways to sustain itself. Enter the Rothschild family. In 1887, Pope Leo XIII turned to the famous banking dynasty for help. The Rothschilds agreed to manage the Vatican's finances, marking the beginning of a new era in the Church's financial history. This partnership lasted until the early 20th century, setting the stage for what was to come. It was in 1929 when Mussolini signed the Littorin Pax and paid a sum equivalent to $1 billion today that the name Bernardino Nogara emerged. A silent but brilliant man called to manage that enormous fortune in a world sinking into the Great Depression. He took the reins of papal finances, moving shrewdly between gold investments, real estate, and government bonds, using shell companies to avoid scrutiny. His creed, to profit at any cost. Nogara's strategies were revolutionary for the time. He diversified the Vatican's investments, moving beyond traditional real estate holdings into the stock market, bonds, and even currency speculation. He created a network of holding companies and offshore accounts, effectively shielding the Church's finances from outside scrutiny. Under his guidance, the Vatican's wealth grew exponentially, even as the world struggled through economic turmoil. And in 1942, Nogara founded the IOR, the Institute for Works of Religion. But the world knows it as the Vatican Bank, a fortress without controls, without taxes. With a golden rule, every 10 years, everything can be erased, perfect for those with something to hide. But when secrecy is guaranteed, abuse is inevitable. The IOR quickly became a financial powerhouse, operating outside the jurisdiction of international banking laws. It offered complete anonymity to its account holders, making it an attractive option for those seeking to hide or launder money. This secrecy, combined with its status as a sovereign entity, made the Vatican Bank a perfect conduit for all manner of financial transactions, both legal and illegal. As the decades passed, the Vatican's financial empire grew, but so did the scandals. In the 1970s and 1980s, the Church found itself embroiled in a series of financial controversies that shook its very foundations. At the center of these scandals were two names that would become synonymous with Vatican financial corruption: Michele Sindona and Roberto Calvi. Sindona, known as God's banker, was a financial advisor to the Vatican who used his position to orchestrate a massive fraud scheme, siphoned millions from the Vatican Bank and other institutions before his empire. Collapsed in 1974, Sindona was eventually convicted of murder and died in prison under mysterious circumstances. Roberto Calvi, chairman of Banco Ambrosiano, worked closely with the Vatican Bank. When Banco Ambrosiano collapsed in 1982 with $1.3 billion in debt, much of it linked to the Vatican, Calvi fled to London. Days later, his body was found hanging from Blackfriars Bridge, a death initially ruled as suicide but later determined to be murder. His scandals exposed the dark underbelly of Vatican finances, revealing a world of money laundering, mafia connections, and political intrigue. They also highlighted the need for reform, a call that would echo through the halls of the Vatican for decades to come. Fast forward to the 21st century, and the Vatican's financial woes continue. In 2019, a scandal erupted over a $200 million investment in a London property deal. The transaction, shrouded in secrecy and involving multiple intermediaries, raised questions about the Vatican's financial practices and the potential for corruption within its ranks. This scandal led to the unprecedented trial of Cardinal Angelo Becciu. Once one of the most powerful figures in the Vatican, Becciu, along with 9 others, faced charges of embezzlement, abuse of office, and other financial crimes. The trial, which began in 2021, marked the first time a cardinal had been prosecuted by the Vatican's criminal court. But it's not just high-profile scandals that plague the Vatican's finances. The day-to-day operations of the Church are often mired in inefficiency and lack of transparency. Donations intended for charitable works sometimes disappear into the labyrinth of Vatican bureaucracy. The true extent of the Church's wealth remains a mystery, with estimates ranging from tens of billions to hundreds of billions of dollars. And so we arrive at the present day. With the new Pope, 2025 is a crossroads. The Vatican has made progress, but the ghosts of the past have not disappeared. Only in 2020 did it reveal its total assets for the first time. But the information remains vague. The accounts are opaque. The names are hidden. Europe is pushing for more transparency, but resistance is still alive. This is the great contradiction. A church that preaches poverty and manages billions. That speaks of honesty, but builds systems to evade controls. That saves lives, but can also destroy them in silence. From Calvi's body to Becciu's trial, the lesson is very clear. Money, if uncontrolled, can corrupt even the sacred. And the real challenge is not economic, but moral. The new Pope faces an uphill battle. He must navigate between the need for financial reform and the resistance of entrenched interests within the Vatican. He must balance the Church's spiritual mission with its temporal responsibilities. And he must do all this while maintaining the faith of over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. The stakes are high. The Vatican's financial practices don't just affect the Church. They have global implications. The Vatican Bank's role in international finance, its investments in multinational corporations, and its vast real estate holdings all have ripple effects that extend far beyond the walls of the Holy See. As we look to the future, questions abound. Can the Vatican truly reform its finances while maintaining its independence? Will it embrace transparency and accountability, or will it continue to operate in the shadows? And perhaps most importantly, can the Church reconcile its immense wealth with its teachings on poverty and social justice? These are not easy questions to answer, but they are crucial ones. The Vatican stands at a crossroads, and the path it chooses will have profound implications, not just for the Catholic Church, but for the world at large. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Will this new pope be the turning point for the Vatican? Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.